So we're very excited to tell you something about our master program today. So welcome everybody from all over the world. Let's start by first introducing ourselves. My name is Tali Spiegel, and I'm also not only a lecturer in the master, and I'll tell you where I lecture in a moment, but I'm also the coordinator of the master, which I enjoy doing very much. And I have with me today two lovely students from the new cohort. And would you like to introduce yourselves? Would you like to start, Marleen?
So I'm Marleen. I have lived in Utrecht for about 6 years now. I started my bachelor's in psychology here, and I also did bachelor's in pedagogical sciences at Utrecht University. I work at Albert Heijn as a temporary job, but I'm combining everything with the master's in sociology, which I actually really like. So I'm really happy that I chose this master's. Yeah,
great, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm Tessa. I did a sociology bachelor before this, and I now do the master and work part-time at the Prinses Maxima Centrum.
Yeah. And behind the scenes, we also have Thomas Martens, who is a senior lecturer as well, and he will be answering your questions, and he knows quite a bit because he's involved quite heavily in some of the courses that I'll tell you about in a moment, that we will tell you about in a moment. The structure will be a bit, first I'll tell you a few general things about the program, why in general we get ranked pretty well, and also what the composition is a bit, and then we'll delve a bit into the program, and mostly my two lovely co-hosts will tell you a bit how it really feels, because it's one thing to hear from me what it technically is, and it's another thing to hear how it's experienced. And I assume, and I imagine the word challenge will come up a lot, but don't see that as a negative thing. At least I hope you don't. I think that's a good thing. So let's get started a bit. So it's good to know that for the last years, we've been scoring first in social sciences in the NSC ranking, and we're very happy for it. What we know is that it has a lot to do with the personal approach we try to take in this master, and you'll see some components of that in the later parts of the presentation. But it also has to do with the type of aims that we have. We like to prepare you really well for the labor market. We really put a lot of emphasis on a good internship and good real world experiences, which also means we include a lot of practitioners and guest lecturers from the real world for you to really get exposed and to delve into things, alongside some of the points you can see on the sheet. So we'll try to illustrate also why that really is the case as we go along. Also really nice to know what you're getting into, right? So some of the core issue really with this program is, as you know also from the title, is that we like to think in a sociological way about contemporary social problems. And what we really think about quite a lot is how do we deal with wicked problems? Does one of you have fresh in her head what the definition is of a wicked problem?
A very complex problem.
Exactly. And did you want to add something?
No, that's basically what I was going to say.
They're problems that are not only complex, but are kind of unsolvable. So societal problems where no matter how much you'll invest into them, they will kind of linger. But what we do as a sociologist, we really try to understand how you might still be able to solve it. And also really importantly, we think, what are the unintended consequences of policy, even if the best of intention was put into making it? So that's something we really have with us as the program goes along. So we really reconstruct and try to think about the buildup of a policy and try to understand it theoretically from a sociological perspective and be able to produce policy advice. And that's a main part of the whole year. What's also really interesting to know is that we have 3 tracks. And in a moment, or maybe now actually, at least I'll let one of you say something about one of the tracks. So we have the care track, the essentials of care track. That's the track that I teach, and I will say a few more words about it in a minute. But the other 2 tracks are about crime and internet and networks. And unfortunately, today we don't have a representative for the internet network track, which you can read about though on the site. But I do have 2 students who are following both the crime course and the care track. So I'll just to mix things up. Would you like to say a few words about what you've experienced so far, not in the care, but
in the crime? So I'm taking the crime course now. The first lecture was only last week, so it's quite
a bit early.
So from the introductory part, we're going to look into where does crime come from, what are trends, what are situational approaches or causes in a neighborhood, how does crime happen, how can we prevent it, and what does policy do, or how can we change policy in order to have try to have an effect on crime trends. I think.
And what do you think about Amy?
Amy's nice, yeah, she's really funny. I was laughing too much in a working group instead of maybe.
So Amy Nevette is also the coordinator of this track, and she is not only a gifted lecturer, but also a gifted comedian. So it's always fun to attend.
Really big into cats.
Very much into cats. So that's very much in short about the tracks, but I'll show you how they build up and how they really become a track instead of a course near the end of the presentation. So don't worry if you're lost, I'll bring it all back together at the end. What you might also want to know is who you'd be with. So we try to aim at a medium-sized group, so mostly 50 to 60 people. This year we have 54 students. We love that size because it's small enough for us to be able to really know each student, at least on the level of where they're from and their name and what they're interested in, because that makes everything more approachable. We also like to make it personal by having a trip together. Does one of you want to say a few words about it?
The away days. We've been on the away days. We were 3 days. We were in Vinkeveen, and we worked on the academic professional projects, which we will talk about, I think.
Yeah.
And in the evenings, we get the chance to get to know each other a bit more. In a fun way.
Yeah. So it's a trip we do together with a master program at the end of the first block, and where we try to combine an academic work week where we really work on a project together, but also kind of just getting to know each other a bit better. So the students really form a nice community, and that's really nice to see. So you also know a bit about who's in the program. We more or less have 30% from our own program, like Tessa, and then we have students from other programs in our university. You see the percentage in front of you, about 30, but it doesn't always go exactly like you see on the sheet. And then we have also students from alternative universities, and we have about 10% internationals. It shifts a bit each year, but we do have a nice balance. And of course, the pre-master students. So we have a pre-master program for those of you who are considering that program. And if you go through the pre-master program, we normally have a cohort of about 20, 25 students that do the pre-master. This year, close to 30 actually. And they also form a really great community. So that's really nice to know. The community plays a big role in what we do. Do you want to say something about it, one of you?
I really like our group. I think we're really lucky with the group we're in. We're all quite close together. And it makes it both more fun sometimes to go to lecture when you maybe don't feel like going to one. Happens sometimes. But I think we sort of help each other out. And if someone's struggling with something, they can ask a question. And everyone's trying to make each other better and help people out where they can. So I think it's really good to have a small group and to connect with each other and to have the away days to be able to do that. Yeah.
So that's something we strive for, and I'm glad you also experience it that way. But that's important to us. And unfortunately, I have not managed to be smart enough to take a nice photo of you guys yet. So it's a photo from last year. But I promise in the next webinar we'll have more contemporary photos, or up-to-date photos. Now let's talk a bit about the program. The scheme includes everything, but I hope that just by giving you a taste of each thing that you at least get what's the general idea. So the first block, which you see in orangey red, is where we try to really first throw you in the deep. So we intensely work on asking what are relevant research questions in sociology, and also on what are relevant policy questions in sociology. And so you in parallel work in a course called OTR, so Organization Theory and Research, where you really delve into theoretical, sociological theoretical aspects of social problems that are contemporary, such as gender issues. Can you think of a good one you spoke about this year? Which theme was interesting in OTR?
Well, we did our paper about educational disadvantages with
Yeah.
children from a non-Western background.
Yeah, exactly. So indeed, migration and inequality, these are some base questions that we ask in that course, not me, because it's Ava's Jasper's course.
Yeah.
And then in the second course that is in the first quarter, we try to think of similar questions or the same question from a policy perspective. While in the first one you answer it as a research question, as an academic question, and the second one you really think in policy research and advice, what is this actually? What does this mean for the real world? What does this mean for a practitioner, for a policy advisor? How would I act as a policy advisor, and how do I evaluate this in a meaningful way? And there in this course, we really find it important that and this is a course I teach, we find it important that you also get in contact with the real world technically. So we have each year quite a few guest lecturers from the real world who come to say something about a contemporary social problem from a policy perspective. And what was your favorite?
My favorite guest lecture for PRA was Marielle Minnesma. She was talking about climate change, and it was really nice to hear someone within the field.
Yeah.
So we get like all of this theory from you, which is also very interesting, of course, but it's nice to get some different perspectives on subjects.
Yeah, and
she
is extremely interesting because she is the director of her agenda, and they had maybe some of you already know, they have an ongoing big lawsuit against the country regarding the agreements that have been made in Paris a few years ago, and it was very fascinating to hear her perspective on it. So as a little celebrity in our course. And then during this course, students also choose a policy they're passionate about or interested in, and then they perform a full evaluation on it. What was your topic?
For the policy, we looked into the effect care for elderly with dementia, and for a policy that would help them sort of stay active or being able to be part of the society.
Yeah, it was a really insightful paper. Yeah. That's something I enjoy each year because we try, when you have a paper, to not limit you in what you can write about, and it's always very exciting to hear or to read about something that we ourselves also are not full experts on. So as a teacher, also very enjoyable. So that's the first block where you really, and also technically are prepping for writing your thesis later, so you get the tools for that. Then we go into the second.
Should we talk about academic professional?
In the end.
Okay.
Yeah. But as you can hear, it's an exciting course. And the second block, you need to make a choice. We have 3 tracks, as we said, and the major course of each track is a sociology course taught by one of us. So you already said a few words about crime, and I will say a few words on the actual track. You know what, shall I say first a few words about the track itself, and then you can tell a bit how you thought about the course?
Yes.
So those are the 3 tracks, and just so you see, they interlink quite well. So maybe just if you just see the 3 names, you think, what does this have to do with each other? But they link really well with each other. So care and internet link very well if you think about e-health or even the effect of online platforms, for instance, on loneliness, which is an important care problem these years and this time. Crime and internet link, obviously, in a more obvious way. For instance, online bullying or online theft and fraud. And if you think about the link between criminology and health, you can think, for instance, about the Me Too movement and what that meant for health and well-being and mental well-being, or about domestic violence. So all of these various tracks link with each other. And therefore, we also ask you as part of your track to combine 2 core track courses. So if you choose to familiarize yourself as your head track with care, like the 2 of you have, then you choose a second track or a second course within the track in order to really see how it fits in the bigger picture. So if you would combine my course with crime as you did, you would seek for opportunities to write papers or do evaluations that search for the connection between the two. Just to say a few more words about how the care track looks like, just to give you an example. I love teaching the care track because I think there's almost nothing these days, and I'm sure there's something, so I'm overdoing it, but I feel like there's almost nothing these days, policy fields that remain so relevant and where we have so little grasp of how to deal with them. We have an ever-aging society. People are having less and less children, and we see trends where we really don't know yet how to properly deal with them. And so every year, if you teach this course, you really have to freshen up because things change so rapidly. And that makes it also sociologically very interesting because, as you heard in the beginning, unintended consequences of good intended policy are one of the things we like to analyze most. And this is just such a perfect topic for it. I repeat this all the time, and you two probably know it by heart. But as I've already said, some of the most classical sociologists say that the core of sociology is about understanding unintended consequences, and not necessarily of policy, but also of policy. And it also, people like Merton, which is also a core sociologist, say it is the core of sociology. This is what we do as sociologists, which makes those of you who are interested in this type of topics secretly a sociologist, even if you didn't know it. So that's about that. How we do it. In the core track, which I teach, the core course, we look at a few themes. First, we take the themes about trends that are currently happening, so mostly decentralization and privatization. And then based on these themes, so based on understanding the embeddedness, we put in there pieces of various themes that we think are really relevant. So we'll talk, for instance, about aging in 1 week and about childcare. But we'll also have practitioners coming in, which you already experienced 2 of, and they will talk about how they experience the changes in healthcare. This week was actually funny, huh? Because we had a pharmaceutical rep, you can call him, or a lobbyist. Was it surprising to you what he had to say?
Well, he was a lobbyist, and not everyone in the audience agreed with him. So that was quite interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
again
nice,
a different perspective.
Yeah, that's it. So you see something you didn't expect you'd see.
Yeah.
You wouldn't interact with such a person otherwise, I guess.
No, I don't think so.
So we try to confront our audience with all aspects, but it was really nice.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you're out there, Matthijs, we enjoyed it. So the course is really about understanding the complexities of the problem of care from both the theoretical side, but also from the real world. So how do practitioners really experience it? And it's always fun when you see how theory actually is realized in real life. So that's about that part. And here you also write a paper that is an evaluation paper. Can you tell us a bit about how that paper looks? So what's the...
Yeah, well, we just started with it, but we had to interview someone within the healthcare. And our group interviewed the director of a healthcare organization. So we asked her what she struggled with when it comes to the policy. And now we're planning on writing a paper about interdisciplinary working within healthcare, and if it has positive or negative effects on the quality of the care.
Do you already have a gut feeling?
I think that it has a positive effect.
Okay.
But we'll see.
In about a month and a half, we'll find out.
Yeah, hopefully.
Are you also excited about the paper?
I like doing the interview because it again makes you sort of part of the real world instead of just sitting at home reading your course work. And I think that's a good thing in this master's in general, that it sort of combines the real world with the theoretical world.
Yeah, and it's funny how sometimes it doesn't fit so well, and that's also something you want to really see, right? So I find that's something that's enjoyable to watch, also for me every year, because we have every year different talkers or speakers, I should say. So I kind of learn together with you about how things are going. So that was about the actual course I give, but so that you have an idea of how the track is built up, because you get to choose between the 3. I already gave a hint at the idea that one of the courses you're choosing is another course from sociology, but now you see it in front of you. So if you choose my course or my track, then I recommend you to choose one of the 3 options that I selected outside of sociology. And for instance, you're doing psychotrauma.
Lots
right?
of psychotrauma. Yes, the first one.
And which sounds really fun to follow.
It is fun. Yeah.
And yours is?
Social influence.
Social influence. And most students tend to choose from the top 3 that we provide, but you can also diverge from that and choose something that you're excited about and you think fits it well, the track. And the second course you choose is one of the other track courses. So if you choose mine, you choose either the internet track or the crime track. And there you search for writing something which really relates also back to care in this case. And that, unfortunately, you two cannot say much about yet. But at the next webinar, I hope we'll have more information about how that is experienced by maybe you yourselves. Yeah. But that is basically the idea of the track. This is examples of a few internships that were really exciting from the last few years. For instance, Bridget Borg, who is from Malta, she did a really nice internship at the Ombudsman of Amsterdam, and she wrote about the well-being of street workers and how professionals view their well-being and how they facilitated it. So that was really exciting and really interesting. And I know that at least you already know what you're going to do soon, to some extent.
Yeah, I have an internship at Kurtosis, which is a research and advice bureau. Yeah.
And did they tell you a bit how they're gonna help me, or how you're gonna help them?
Yeah, well, they told me that they were quite busy and they had some topics that they really want to have investigated, but they just didn't have enough people. So
there you are.
Yeah.
Well, the fun part about the internship here, which is also leads always to everybody being really scared in September, because is the fact that we don't put many demands on exactly what you need to do there. The most important thing about the internship is that it's not taking you too many days in the week, so you have to always reserve one day for us. But for the rest, it's really important that they facilitate your research for your thesis. But really, if you want to get involved in projects there on top of it, or you want to get more practical experience, we really are open to anything, which in the first semester, the first block, is a bit intimidating because you can do anything and everything, but it's also a blessing, I think, because that means you really can do anything.
Yeah.
So that's the part we find fun. And of course, we always everybody has an internship. So we never have a case where somebody is left with no internship, and we really try to stimulate you and help you in the first few months think about what fits you best and if we can help you get there somehow. So that's important to know. And that will play from February until the end of the year. So until you submit your thesis, and you're always welcome to prolong it a bit, but that's the official length of it. And aside this, you'll write your thesis. So some will write it as the main objective of their internship, but others will be combining it more in a more equal way, so 2 days and 2 days. But at the end of the day, you're making something that relates closely to the interest of the organization, and it's just a really nice experience. So that's what you do mostly in the second half of the year.
I think Flora has a nice question. She asked if we need to write our papers and thesis in English.
So yes and no. Everything you write for the courses that are in block 1 and 2 will be in English, because the courses are fully in English. However, your internship and your thesis can be in Dutch or English. So depending on what makes sense, we understand you're going to work for mostly a Dutch-oriented organization in your internship, and therefore we also understand that you might be it might be more compatible to write in Dutch. But for the rest, everything that's academic and in a course form is in English. I hope that answers your question. Is there anybody else we should already? I think also there was a question about language. Oh no, there was a question about going abroad. That fits really well. So Anouk asked if it's possible to go abroad. And it is certainly possible, as you see also the second option here. Samira went and did a nice project on also well-being of children. I'm oversimplifying it, but I think the content is less important. What's important is that she went to Kenya, and every year we have a few people that go abroad. The plus part is that you go abroad and you do a very exciting internship there. The negative side is, of course, that you then distance yourself a bit from the nice community and the convenience of being involved in a group of people doing exactly the same thing at that moment. But that does not mean you cannot do it. So every year we have a few, and this year we have at least one. So yes, it's possible. I don't know if you'll want to do it once you get started. So let's see, but keep in mind that that is a possibility for sure. Do we have something to add on this for now, or shall we go on?
Nothing to add.
Okay, I think. Then we move to the next. And now we get to an important topic. This is the course called Academic Professional. And I think this one we'll do mostly together because I think as students, you have a much better idea of what you think about Academic Professional. I'll only say that the general goal of Academic Professional is what the title says. It's the movement from becoming, from being an academic, a very proficient academic, to being a real professional. So we look for the link between your current situation and the where you're going to be September. And every year we have a project commissioned by an organization. And this year we're commissioned by InHealth. You wanted to say a few words, I think.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing about Academic Professional is that it's not like a normal course. So it's not like lectures and working groups and a paper, but it's throughout the whole year. We have InHealth. It's an organization which asks for our help because they're trying to find solutions for burnouts within healthcare, if I say it correctly.
Yeah.
So in little groups, we're working on solutions. We're giving little pitches to InHealth, so professionals who then give feedback, and with this feedback we go on till January, and then those ideas might really be implemented through InHealth, and I think that's quite nice.
Exciting, eh?
Yeah.
You
might, almost feel like a professional.
Yeah. You are.
Yeah.
Did you want to add?
No, yeah, I think especially when we got the assignment at the first meeting, it felt really big, and I thought, how are we going to do this? So we don't know anything, and now we have to like actually provide them with really good stuff. But like throughout the course, we're getting it's getting shape, and InHealth has come by a couple of times, and they've actually told us that they're really happy with our input. So that sort of makes us feel a bit more like we are actually able to provide them with like good information or good advice.
Because we always commission somebody who is actually now working on a project.
Yeah.
So it's always the case, and I should not take credits for this. Thomas, who is answering your questions in the other room, is also the coordinator of this course. So if you have questions about it, please ask him. But it's always a project that's actually happening in live time. So whatever you make, if it's good, they want it, which is so much more exciting than just writing about some topic and know that it goes into the drawer. Also important to say about this course is that it's not only about solving complex problems in a practical way, but it's also about, so this will be the second half of the year, it's about really reflecting on your internship and seeing who you are as a professional. So where you're going and how you want to change things or proceed as you're going. So it's an exciting course.
Yeah, definitely.
Challenging, I think, would be the fair word for it here. So that's about Academic Professional. We're kind of reaching the conclusion of things. You'll see the top photo is a photo from the trip we made together, and there in the middle is Thomas instructing. How do you call this type of exercise? A group
activity.
A group activity where everybody is blindfolded and has to create a shape of a square together.
To work together and see who takes on what role and to solve
team building
problem.
Team building, yeah.
It's like a team building, solve a problem
with 50
in a creative
people.
way with 50 people, yeah.
And just to ruin the punchline, they managed
quite well.
Yeah. And I think these photos are a bit of a good summary of how we like to see things. So we focus a lot on our team. We focus a lot on what's going to happen next. So once the program is over, where do you go and how do you get there? So we have guest lectures. As I said many times, we have guaranteed internship, and we try as much as possible to get you as close to the themes you're excited about. And we as much as possible keep you close to the real world. So not just us in the academic sphere, but us in the next step, or you, I should say, because I remain in the academic bubble. And also, you might be wondering, if you pay so much attention to what happens next, what does happen next? So here you'll see a couple of examples of students who studied here a few years ago and where they've been. But I think it's more fun because you know actually some students.
Yeah, I know quite a few. Yeah. I know I won't call names, but I know someone who is now working at a research and advice bureau.
Mm-hmm.
And I must say that I don't really know what the rest is doing.
Well, I can tell one I'm really excited about. One of the students I had as a thesis student also, and now works at the, I don't know how to translate it 100% English, but for unemployment agency to support people who are, so the UWV, to those of you who do know. And she just won also an award for being a strong female leader in the organization, which is so fantastic. And what is also really fun to know is that a lot of the people who studied here end up coming back to give lectures. They come back with nice internships. So it's not a community in the 1 year, but it's a community as the years go by. So I hope you become part of our community. And if you are interested, it's important to know what are the requirements. If you've done our program, that you already apply for the requirements. But if you have a bachelor in the social sciences and are unsure, just make sure you have the right points. So you have enough quantitative methods. If you're on the level of multivariate analyses, then you have to have some social science theory for 15 ECTS, so that's 2 courses, and then 2 courses on policy-related concerns. And if you have any concerns and you're not sure whether you fit, my email will be on the next slide. For those of you who come from the from the Dutch University of Applied Science, so the HBO, you can follow the pre-master program. And again, we can channel you to the right person if you're unsure whether you fit or not. But if you are from this background, you should know that you then get to be part of 2 great communities, the pre-master community and the master community.
We've got a question about the pre-master.
Of course.
How do students that did the pre-master program experience the master?
Yeah.
I think they're all really into it. Like they're really enthusiastic, and I feel from what I've heard from them that the master does really connect well to the pre-master. So from what I've heard, like there's really like a solid pre-master program to prepare you for the master's program.
Certainly, and I think they come in prepared. And of course, the first month is a bit, what's going on here? But we really try to accommodate that as much as possible.
I think that's for everyone, because like for people who haven't done the pre-masters, they also, most of them have not done their masters yet. So they come from a bachelor, regular bachelor program to the master program, and the pre-masters come from the pre-master to master. So it's sort of new for everyone, and everyone knows some things about some topics and is new to other topics. So I don't think that being from a pre-master
it should not, because
it makes it harder.
The pre-master really prepares you quite well. And in the first block, we try to seek moments for you to catch up if necessary, but mostly we see that we don't really notice that there's a big difference in performance of any sort. So don't worry about that if that is a concern. Any other questions? I think for now it's okay.
No more questions.
That means we were very clear. Admission is open. So as far as I know, correct me from the back if I made a mistake, but that means that if you're ready to apply, you can apply. If you're not sure yet and you want more information, then I'll show you. This is my own face again, but also my email address. So you can find me by emailing me. I try to be quick about responding. If I'm taking longer, it just means that your question was a bit complicated and I need some more advice. So don't worry. But also, if you would like to talk to an alumni or current students, I can match you. So any of these options are perfectly open. And then we have our Q&A.
We did get one question.
Yes.
Eva asks, is it a big difference in terms of level between bachelor, she says ASW, and this master? I have no experience with ASW.
Yeah, but you probably have a feeling about bachelor to master difference.
Yeah, well, of course there is a difference, as in the master is, of course, more difficult, but also in but also in a way that you're just far more, well, if I speak for myself, you're far more serious. You know, it's like more of, like with academic professional, you really know what you're doing it for.
Yeah.
So it's more difficult, yes, but yeah, if you finish the bachelor, you can do the master.
I think ISV is not that different in that sense. Did you want to add something?
Yeah, no, I think a difference for me between the bachelor's and the master's is that mostly the master's is a bit more demanding in how much or how big a project you have to do in a shorter amount of time. So it's you have to really go for it and be into it. But also a difference is that like because you're a master student, you get taken seriously by the teachers, and what you said, we're not anonymous, and we're being seen as colleagues more than as students who don't know anything. So I think that's a big difference.
I think, indeed, as you say, the level differences are in a way more on what you produce than necessarily. Of course, we try to have to read material that is more complex, but at the end, the hard work comes from you producing more complicated output. So that's where you should see it. But we have ISV students, and I think they're doing well.
Definitely.
So I wouldn't be too concerned.
Another question, Floor asks us, how much time does the master cost you per week?
That differs so much, I think. for students.
So now it costs me like very much time a week because it's a busy period, challenging period. What would you say?
Yeah, I never know how much hours. Like, of course, there's the lectures, the working groups that you put time into. Then you have to prepare for them, reading articles, and because you follow 3 courses. You also have to write 3 papers or do.
So now we're having like 3 courses, which is 3 full days. And like 1.5 day preparing 2 days. Something like that. Yeah.
So we structure the program to fit into a full-time, as if it were a job. So it fits, but it really differs per student how well they perform under pressure. And so Tessa combines it actually with the proper and you too, right? So while I wouldn't go out and say, please work a lot while doing the program, I see that some students
But it does take some time. During my bachelor's, I used to work all the time, and now I found out that I sometimes had to ask my colleagues if they could fill in for me. So it really does take more time to do the master's program than to do the bachelor's program.
So you need to just feel it. But if it's about work and master program together, then
definitely do.
You really have to figure out what works for you the best. Did we have more questions?
Yes, at Marlene and Tessa. What do you want to do after you finish this master program?
I'm also curious.
So,
I know a bit what you might do.
Oh, you do?
Oh, well, you said you might stay, right? No, at your own organ.
Now I work at the Princess Maxima Center, and I might want to stay there. But in terms of like, I'm doing the internship in a research and advice bureau. So in like 1 or 2 years, I see myself working there.
Nice.
For now, I'm good.
Do you know some about it?
I'm not sure yet. Also because I'm really new to sociology. I feel like maybe I want to work for like a non-governmental organization, but there's so many options. And also I'm really hoping from an internship to sort of find out what interests me or what kind of way I want to go.
The internship is a great opportunity not to just explore a theme you're curious about, but also to feel what kind of work environment fits you well.
Yeah, exactly.
Some people go into a ministry because they're excited about working in a big organization and really, but then they come at the end and say, you know what, I feel too much like I'm just a little pawn in a big game. And then they figure out that their next step, they're going to apply to somewhere which is a smaller, compact organization. And a lot of our students just continue working where they did their internship. So it might even happen to you. So we have quite a few of our alumni just stuck to where they were in a good way. I mean, they're not stuck, but they continued where they did their internship.
I see that we have a last question.
Okay.
And it's from Leah. She asks us, is it possible to do qualitative research for the master thesis, or does it have to be quantitative?
It certainly does not have to be, but we encourage you to really think, what is an important problem? What is, where can I really contribute to my internship or to my, or to a gap in the literature? And what's the best way to do that? So not necessarily think about what method I find fun, but more what fits my question. And if you do something that includes, if you try to go out and get your own data, like qualitative research, that just means you have to prepare a bit better, right? So you have a bit of an ethical evaluation, but it certainly does not mean you cannot do it. So if it's your passion and if that fits best, then that's just what will happen. Sure. So that was the last question.
That was the last question. Yes.
So I hope you two had as much fun as I did, and thank you for joining me. And I hope you have enough information, but if you don't, you know where to find us.
Yeah.